Good morning. Time for another day of Bhagavad Gita Sadhana. Thank you so much for joining, whether live or by recording. So, we're continuing our discussion on death today. Yesterday, we talked about the idea that death can be a teacher, and that in the East, death is considered somebody friendly, not somebody like we in the modern West view as an enemy that we need to fight and fight and fight. So today we're going to look at death as in a slightly different way from the Eastern perspective. And that is, death is something that humans want. And you might go, what? We do? There's a story about that, and it happens to do with Lord Shivji, Lord Shiva. It is said that so long ago you can't even imagine it. A man and his wife wanted a child. The man was a sage, the woman was a highly devoted woman, and they were given a choice by Lord Shiv. They propitiated Lord Shiva and said, "Please, Lord, grant us a son." And Shiva gave them this choice. "I will bless you with a son, but you can either have a son that will live a long life and be absolutely a horrid person, or you can have a son who will die before he reaches 16, but will be the epitome of goodness." And what do you think the parents chose? They chose the short-lived son. They had the child, they raised him very well. Let's call him Mark for the sake of us Westerners. They raised Mark well. And on the day of his 16th birthday, Mark went out to perform blessings for Lord Shiva, as he had learned to do from his parents and as he had done every day since he could remember. Before he leaves on this day, he noticed his mother is crying. And he says, "Mother, what's wrong?" She says, No, don't worry about me. Go do your puja to Lord Shiva." The child goes out. Mark does his puja. He's worshiping Shiva. And as he does, the actual time of his birth approaches. So he's still 15 and 23 hours and some minutes. And the time of his 16th birthday approaches, and so does a large man in the distance with a noose and a mace. This is death. Death has come for Mark. And Mark says to death, "I understand who you are. Let me just finish my prayers to Shiva and I will go with you." And death says, "I don't think you get it. You're on my schedule. I'm not on your schedule." Mark says, "Please, just let me finish this and I'll go with you." And death said, "I don't think so." And he put his noose around Mark and started to drag him off. And Mark called out, "Lord Shiva, please protect me so I can finish this puja." And Shiva appeared. And when he saw death carrying off Mark and died, also known as Mark to us, Shiva kicked death in the chest, and death died. Mark was freed and continued his puja. Shiva said to Mark, "Look, I promised your parents that you would be very good, and when you reached your 16th birthday, you would die. So here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to stop time. You will never age a moment past how old you are now. You will never reach 16. You will never die." And Mark thought, what a splendid thing. Mark's parents thought, what a splendid thing. And the world, humanity included, thought, what a splendid thing that death is dead, right? Well, the consequences were not carefully thought through. For example, when I said Mark was born so long ago you can't imagine, Indian cosmology has the belief that the universe is existing, it dies, it's born again, it dies, it's born again, it dies, which sounds kind of familiar to us in the modern era. And Mark did not die like everything else. He had to live through the death of the universe and the rebirth over and over and over and over again in his body. And speaking of bodies, the people who were alive when death was killed, at first they're like, as I mentioned, yay, but then what about the people that are terminally ill now? They're just going to have to suffer for the rest of their lives. What about the people that are locked up in prison for life? They're going to have to be there forever. What about those of us who have taken vows and been married to somebody till death do us part, and now there's no death? We can even think of it practically. Without death, how is the power structure going to change? The people who are elder never die and turn over the power to the younger generation, for example. And that brings us to another benefit of death: change. So if there's no turnover in power, and if there's no turnover in the living, like if I know that tree is never going to die, no matter what I do to it, the plants are never going to die, I'm not going to like plant any more plants, because imagine everything you plant never dies. The weeds that come up never die. Your pet will never die. You'll never get another pet, right? The weed, you can't kill the weeds. It's just going to get more and more weedy. What are you going to do? And does the lack of death extend to our technology, for example? What will happen to our economy if our cars never die, if our phones never die, if our computers never die, dishwashers never die? Boy, that would be great. Anyhow, so there will be no change. There will be no release from how we are now without death. And it is said that after a very short time, the humans were calling for death and calling to Lord Shiva, please, please bring death back, please. And Lord Shiva, in his mercy, did. So we've had the opportunity to be free of death, and we begged death to return. That could mean something. So today, as you contemplate in your meditation, you may wish to do a practice of letting go, of releasing, because death can bring us release. And a mudra of release is called Pranidhana. The thumbs touch the middle two fingertips, and then the index and little fingertips touch also, and this hangs down. This is a mudra of letting go. And interestingly, this word pranidhana shows up in the Yoga Sutras. Letting go and letting the divine, however it appears, as life or death, do what it needs to do, pranidhana. And during your meditation, you can perhaps contemplate, what do I want to die within me? What do I want to be released eventually? Do I want to stay exactly the way I am now for all time? Or do I have something I want to release, that I want to send to death in a friendly, friendly way? You can do it from Shavasana or sitting with the mudra as you choose, as we get there. Let's do our pose. Switching sides. And let's come into our position for a meditative practice, perhaps sitting with Pranidhana Mudra or lying in Shavasana, the pose of death. What do we need to let die in ourselves? Welcome back. As I was sitting outside here, I'm reflecting upon how this time of year the mice start coming inside because it's cold out. And then I thought, what if mice never died? I mean, just think of it. They keep having babies. They never died. Within a couple of years, it would be mouse world. Amazing. May your own inner mice die. This is dedicated to everyone in hospice and their families. May death be a friend to you. And also thank you for being my friend. I've been fasting a little, so my story is a little slow on the uptake today. And this reminds me of something I have to let die within me, perfectionism. So I'm going to go work on that. Have a wonderful day and see you tomorrow.